ACTs. So we do advocacy work for technology organizations. Minnesota, how does Minnesota do in terms of computer science education? How are we right now in the country? Yes,
oh,
sir.
I know this one. Someone told me.
Yes.
We're 50th out of 50.
We're 50th out of 50 states. We are dead last in high school computer science. So that's the number of high schools who offer computer science classes. Only 21% of all high schools in Minnesota offer any computer science classes at all. That's dead last in the whole country. So MnTech does advocacy work at the state capitol with state organizations to try to change things like that. It's important to companies that everybody has access to the internet. Things like statewide broadband are things that MnTech advocates for. So that's the A piece. The C part is building community. Technologists need community with each other. We do events like this. We also do a monthly free Tech on Tap event. We've been at probably 6 different breweries so far. We'll be at 3 or 4 more before the end of the year. It's always the first Thursday of the month. You are always welcome to attend. And the whole goal is to be anti-Zoom. It's always unplanned people, it's never virtual, and there's beer. So those are all things that Zoom can't offer. And so we try to do things like that. We have a women leading in technology group. There were about 175 men and women and people who don't identify as either who were there last week to be able to learn about what does it mean to be able to grow a career in technology. So that's a community that you could connect with. And the final thing that we do is talent. We really want to inspire, hire, develop, and retain great technologists in Minnesota. Obviously, your company or your organization wants to do that. We want to do that for the whole ecosystem. And so we do things like Tech Careers 1.0. We do things like Jumpstart. Jumpstart is a community for people who are just graduating from or still a part of a boot camp or tech training program who are wanting to get their first job in technology. So we're doing a Jumpstart event in a couple weeks. It's a way to be able to get people into technology. We help to support organizations that are training and developing new technologists like GenesisWorks or StepUp or Rev Academy or places like that. So lots of ways to get connected. My final plug for MnTech is if you don't get our Tech Tuesday email, you can find it on our website. It's the best way to find out about all kinds of events like this. So just subscribe to our Tech Tuesday email. We'll push out content on a weekly basis so that you can get that. Okay, MnTech commercial over. I do want to do a quick plug though. We have a couple of people who helped us sponsor this event today. One of them is Excel Energy. So Caitlin and Bonnie are in the back. They have helped to build a plug in the back.
Better than I could have done, so very appreciated. So welcome everyone. We're really excited to talk today. We're going to have a Q&A session as well, so if we don't get to something that is particularly pertains to your situation, please feel free to ask questions. We want this to be a conversation as much as possible. So first person I'm going to introduce way down at the end there is my friend Zach Hughes. He's the VP of CHS, and you might not have heard of it. CHS is the world's largest co-op, basically.
That's correct.
And they are located in River Grove Heights. What else do you do over there?
I lead our cloud computing practice, our application development practice, our customer application portfolio, and just try to keep things coming along. So
awesome. Thanks. And then next is Frederick Blockton. He's the president of UpNet. Frederick, what do you guys do over there?
Hi everybody. We do what we call EDI, Electronic Data Interchange. We do about 40 million business transactions a month with companies like Target, Best Buy, and others. And then years ago we just patented our own platform. So now we have about 13 different applications where we do development and we push data out for visibility.
Great. Thank you. And next is Tanya Fiedler. She's here at Excel. She's in Excel. She leads the application delivery team. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the work you do here?
Well, welcome to Excel, everyone. Thanks for coming here. We're excited to host this event. And I am the VP of Application Delivery, and what I'm responsible for is all of our customer applications. So if you're a Excel customer and use our Excel website or our mobile app, that's my team's responsible for that. And then I'm also responsible for any applications that create energy, that help to create energy, or pull that energy from wherever we create it all the way to your home. So, and the meters that are sitting on your home for monitoring your energy usage. So they get to be involved in all of that.
Great, thank you. And Brad?
And then there's me.
And then there's
There's Brad Cohen. He's the president at, what is the place
King
called?
Consulting.
Oh, that's right, King. That's
Spelled
the
just
name of it,
like
yeah. What do you do over there?
So I work with folks like the panelists up here, but I came from a background of 30 years of software engineering and software engineering leadership. And so now I do management consulting and I help people to grow leaders, grow their organizations, grow their businesses, to become better, more effective organizations and teams.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm excited today because we have such a wide application design. It's great. So how many people here are looking for work right now? Raise your hand. Higher. Okay, good. All right. First, we're going to start my line of questioning. Is if I'm looking for work today, thanks to the pandemic and the things that have happened over the past couple of years, it used to be you submit your resume off into the darkness, and then you wait, you chant, you stay as calm as you can while you're waiting for a response. What do you see changing after the pandemic?
So it just, another plug for the book. If networking says, I can't do that, you can, for sure. There are ways to do that. So I think that's been that is key today. And I think, it's just been maybe the pandemic and our current economy has simply just accelerated that. But it was hard even when maybe there's plenty of jobs and things like that, because your name's still a resume in a stack that could be quite big. How do you come out from that? How do you stick out from that? So having the world's best resume, I don't think is the answer. Certainly should be of quality, but getting to know people and doing the networking, getting people to know you, helping, serving, just being a resource to others, paying that forward is a great way to kind of start to build those connections. Some of you folks are kind of in need of a network. I will say that's something to never take for granted. The old adage of the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Maybe you guys have all heard that before. Same thing kind of goes with the network. The time to build a network is not when you need it. It's prior to, hopefully. And then be bold about leveraging it and using it. Everybody in here knows folks. If you don't know anyone in IT at all, please come talk to me afterwards, and I'll be your first. But leverage this group as well.
Heard it and still network effectively and still interview effectively. I think one of the things that I spent a lot of time as a consultant in my career, as a contract programming consultant in my career. I've done a lot of interviews. If I think about it, it's probably 200 to 300 job interviews. Because that's the nature of that particular role. And so after you do something 200 or 300 times, you start to figure out what works. And one of the things that I can recommend to everybody when you're interviewing is, 1, pay a lot of attention, 2, listen, and 3, ask the smartest questions that you can think of, and then really listen to the answers. Those are great ways to kind of advance that forward. And those same basic principles work in networking. So after this event, we're going to all have an opportunity to network with each other, get to know the people around you, and because you never know where that next opportunity could come from.
It's true. So let's talk, Tanya, about there's networking outside of your organization, but let's talk a little bit about networking inside of your organization, because some people are interested in growing in the current roles they have. What strategies or tips would you give maybe a person today, in today's world, about how to navigate not only networking internally, but maybe externally as well?
Sure. I actually think networking after the pandemic is easier, and I'll tell you why. Before the pandemic, I had to set up a meeting, I had to drive to location, I would have to take extra time off of work. Now I can just do a quick Zoom meeting. I can fit you in between 2 meetings. Yep. Or I can easily have a car chat, which I have a lot of those car chats. My first part of my career, I spent 23 years at Target. And I say in the first 23 years, I didn't know a single person outside of Target, because I spent my whole life networking inside of Target. And that was part of the DNA of Target. And one of the things we did there was every single week, I planned on one person I would network with, one new person. And I would just invite them for coffee, meet me down for coffee, and we would go to coffee. And I always planned when I networked with someone, at least 2 or 3 topics that I would be ready to talk to them about, or questions that I'd be ready to ask them about, and I was seeking to get to know them. One of the things I always did is I would look them up on LinkedIn in advance, find out a little bit about them. Like today I was looking up everyone on the panel, and I saw Zach right away. I'm like, Zach, we both went to Bethel University, and it's great to have a connection, some small connection. It could be, we both have a same connection or whatever it is. Something you can find in common helps you to start that conversation and make that connection. So, and the other thing I would just suggest is start small. If you're nervous, start with someone you know. Somebody in a community, maybe I might start with someone that I know from church, oh, we have this other connection, and so let me talk here about your job. Whatever, maybe it's somebody that you play baseball with, or somebody you do a social activity. Smart, small, and practice, and then you'll kind of get confident to do somebody maybe you don't know, or a little bit of a cold call networking event.
I love that. Frederick, what would you have to add to that?
Wow. We just got said quite a bit. I think networking is, it's a good, opportunity to get to know people and to express who you are and learn who they are also. But companies are like this, right? So companies are always, spinning very fast, right? And so that's about their revenue generation, okay? So you, as an individual, also have to be spinning at the same speed in order to enhance how that company is moving, right? And so my thought is, and the way I see it today, companies are looking for people that are ready to go, right? And, of course there's internships and there's other ways to get in the door as well. But being prepped about that company and what they do is 100%, right? So the last thing you want to do is get in an interview and ask questions about the company, right? You want to already know about the company so that if they do hire you or make you an offer, you know what it means to onboard with them, right? So it's a little bit more deeper now, and I think today, it used to be a time you could send in your resume or you could apply for a job, right? Now companies are really looking for people who've taken the time because the information is right at your fingertips, right? So they're looking for companies who know about what they do and how they do it, and not only that, but who the people are inside the company who you would potentially work for or work with, right? So that's the other part of the networking, is understanding that chain to understand how you would fit into that company, right? And it's not just big companies that do that. There's smaller companies that do that as well. And I've been working for smaller companies since 1996, right? Because I didn't like the big company stuff, but it was more humanistic. It was easier to get into because it was more about relationships, and now it's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how I would add,
thank you.
To that part.
That's great. Yeah, I think that more and more people are expecting you to show up having a good understanding of who the organization is. I saw a lot of nodding heads when we talked about that. So you have the time to do some research about the place you're talking to ahead of time, understand what they do as a business, understanding how they make money is really good. Sometimes it seems obvious, but I can't tell you how many people in my career had no idea how our company actually did revenue, made money. Like, what did they do? So having a good understanding. And again, this isn't weeks and weeks of research here. It's a couple of hours tops. And a lot of places also will offer informal interviews too. So, it's a great way to get in, practice interviewing, understand more about the organization. So even if you don't see a job maybe listed at a place, you can ask, see if they do some informal interviewing. Maybe if they don't have an opening necessarily for the position you're interested in, you can always make a request for that. Sometimes they have the time for it, sometimes they don't. So Tanya, if I'm interested in trying to get into a company for the first time, as Frederick mentioned, some advice on it. What's your advice on ways to maybe stand out?
I think the first thing you're going to do, if it's a company you don't know, you want to go to your LinkedIn and see who you know that knows somebody at that company. And you want to try to make a connection. connection, right? And you want to make a connection with somebody and just reach out. And hopefully if you know somebody that knows somebody, they can do a warm invite. That definitely is the first way. That's I kind of laugh because there was a lot of people at Target that left Target and went to different companies. So I always use that analogy of that dandelion you blow and it's got people everywhere. Your network, it's amazing, especially when you go to that 6 degrees of separation, right? You're going to find somebody that you know at that company. So start by looking for the person that you know, and that's going to be your way in.
That's great. I like that. Yeah, because again, you don't know who you don't know. So, but one of the biggest problems I see is that people need to put themselves out there and say, I am looking for this thing, or I need help with this thing. And it's not just LinkedIn. I mean, other social media, using that, or just email, or asking friends and family. You know, there's a cognitive bias that we all have when we're not around people that we know, that we assume they're fine. That's what we always assume, they're fine. If I haven't heard from them, no news is good news, right? But you never know, that person could be looking for their next job, could be looking for a job, and they don't know that you are looking for a job. If they don't know that you're looking for a job, they can't help you find a job. So it's making sure that you are taking ownership of that, I think, is really important. So Zach, what would you have to add to that?
Yeah, I was just thinking about a couple of things there. You know, kind of back to the LinkedIn versus in-person aspect of things that I just wanted to kind of lay out a little bit of a superpower there. You know, we talked about being introverts. You know, one of the reasons you go into IT or technical field is because you like talking to computers more than you like talking to people, right? If I like talking to people, I would have gone into communications or human resources or something like that, right? So it can be a little tough. It can be a little tough, and it's like, oh my goodness. Just using the power of social media to amplify is huge. And you're not just looking for a job, you're looking for the right job. So I'll kind of even just give a kind of a negative example of one of the things that Tanya was just talking about. You know, I was considering a career move to a company, and I didn't know anybody that worked there. But I had done a LinkedIn search, and I found people that I did know that used to work there. It's like, wow, somebody worked there and they left, and I know that guy. So call that person up, or just DM them and say, hey, see, you used to work there. What was your experience? And people that work for a company will give you a pretty good honest review. People that used to work at a company will really give you an honest review, right? So, you know, that was just really insightful. And I feel like I kind of dodged a bullet. It's like, well, I'll avoid that one, you know? Yep. So using the power of LinkedIn, goodness, I've been on LinkedIn since it was invented, and it's just been incredibly helpful to me in my career. So, and you don't build a network overnight. You don't get thousands of connections in a week. It takes a lot of time, and I would encourage everyone in here, you know, you're going to meet people here. You know, maybe you'll exchange business cards that, you know, if you're kind of old school and like to do it that way. I would encourage you to connect with every single person that you meet face to face here. Make sure that becomes a LinkedIn connection.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be clear on what you're looking for. It's okay to tell people this is what I'm looking for. It's nothing. We're all here together to experience this event. We're not cold calling people. We're right here. Mm-hmm. So just ask people, what are you looking for? This is what I'm looking for, and see if there's synergies there. If not, then we can connect on LinkedIn, and maybe sometime in the future there would be. So with that, you know, let's talk about building our skill set. So networking is a skill set, right? What other skill sets in technology design, you know, should I be focused on, Brad? Like if I'm working, you know, I've got a job now, do I just do more JavaScript? Like is that how I get better at what I'm doing?
Great question. When I started out my career back in the Paleolithic era, I didn't know what technology I wanted to get into. I had a background in computer science, and I enjoyed writing software, but it's like, what is going to get me a job? And back in those days, this is before Google and before LinkedIn, you kind of had to guess. You had to kind of make some assumptions. And I picked 3. 2 of them you've never heard of because they died. And then the last one was Java. And I taught myself Java, got a book and read through it and ground away on it and got it that way. Nowadays, you have the advantage of being able to see on Indeed.com or on LinkedIn or on Stack Overflow what are the skill sets, the technical skills that employers are looking for, and what are the ones that pay the most. And you can be perfectly fine biasing your skill set towards the ones that pay the most. AI. And I mean, right now that's hot. The thing of it is, having been in the game for a really long time now, that changes. And so it's incumbent upon you as individuals to keep your technical skills appropriate. Keep your skills sharp and hot and on the things that are in demand for the kinds of work that you want to do. Because we've all seen the flash in the pan technologies. Anybody remember portal servers? That was really, really hot for like 18 months, and then it was dead. So there's just, some of them come and go. They might not be the ones that you are the most interested in. Sometimes you're like, oh, I really love Rust, and everybody should be programming in Rust because Rust is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's like, that's nice. What people are hiring for is over here. And so Rust may be something that you do in your free time, and what gets you paid and pays your bills is something else that isn't quite as sexy or isn't quite as awesome.
That's great. Frederick, what skills would you suggest as someone growing in technology? What should they be focused on? More technology?
More technology. So I've been in technology since 1975, right? So that's when I entered college into the information technology. It wasn't information technology back then, but it was a technology world. And so I've had an opportunity to watch it grow from 1975 to what it is now, right? And throughout that entire period, if I stayed stagnant with what I learned in college, I would be toast, right? It would have passed me right away, right? So education and continued education in the field that you want to go in, that's what you want to do, right? I mean, you want to continue to gobble up. I still educate myself today. I'm still going to classes. I still have to stay up on technology because we are a technology firm and it's always changing, right? And so for you, the more you, I guess, in our field, the more you gobble up, the more valuable you are to people, right? And that's going to be on you to be that valuable person to whatever career or direction you want to go. But the thing about technology, it's wide, right? I took 135 kids to US Bank Stadium, right? So you just think, this big stadium, it has over $250 million worth of technology in it, right? That drives the lighting, like it changes the lighting based on how the sun is, and you guys don't even know that stuff. You're just in there, rah, 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 but, but people have to install it and repair it and maintain it. So there's so many broad technology careers that I challenge you to open your mind up to all the things that are available to you by education, right? By learning these different things around technology. If you're in software, learn hardware. If you're in hardware, learn software. I mean, it's really a great field, and it's about education.
Yeah. But Zach, like a lot of the arguments I get is people say, well, but I don't have time to do this extra work. There's a new season of Mandalorian. I've got kids, or
You are setting yourselves up to be lifelong learners. If that is a problem, you probably picked the wrong field. And even in, I'm in management. I don't put my hands on the keyboard like I used to, but I still have to do this. I spent a lot of my career working in data centers. Okay, now some of you folks have seen data centers in movies because they look cool and the blinky lights. Those things are kind of going away. It's all going to the cloud, and I had to kind of learn to make sure that I updated my skill set at least so I wouldn't be an inhibitor to my team. Use my own kind of background as kind of without even knowing I'd hold my team back. So those are a couple thoughts I got on that.
That's great.
I was an economics major, and my first job out of college, I worked for Target as an inventory analyst, and I was responsible for women's denim jeans. And my job was to get the right size and color of women's denim jeans in every single Target store. And it was an awesome job out of college, and I did that for 3 years, and I found out, boy, I'm way more interested in the computer systems that I'm using than I am in the buying and picking a product. And so that's kind of how I ended up in technology. I've been in technology for 30 years now, never did code, but I will say a different view of education, which is to me, understanding the business and knowing about your business that you're supporting. So one of the things that was great for me is I had actually been in the business. I had been an inventory analyst. I knew what that looked like. And then when I moved in technology and I started working on, I moved in more to a business analyst role, gathering requirements. Then I moved into project management. I was one of those people that could work really closely with the business, and I can convert technical talk to business talk. And how did I do that? For me, learning means on the job. So I'm really a believer in that, 70, 20, 10 philosophy, right? 70% of what you learn is on the job through what you're doing. And this happens to me even today. I learn best in a crisis. So this morning we had a big priority 1 incident here at Excel, and I was learning a ton this morning I woke up at 4 a.m. On that 4 a.m. conference call, learning on the job, real time. And to me, that's how I absorb. I use the people that I work with to learn all the time. I'm in the app delivery team, but if I need to learn something from my network partners or my infrastructure partners, I may set up time with them. Help me understand, how does this apply to the problem that we're having? And to me, that readiness, that right there during the moment of a problem, or I need to learn it because it applies to what I'm doing, is so much more meaningful than going to a class. The other tip I would say is, if you're in a job right now, use your vendors. If you have vendor partners that you work with, they can help you learn so much. I have partnered with my vendors. Even when my boss maybe said, Tanya, I need you to know this. I don't know, I call up my vendor partner. Can you give me the download on what you know after I've Googled all of it, Because I Google all of it first, and then I may ask for them to help me. So use the people around you. There's a lot of people around you, and people love to help people.
Yeah.
So ask for it.
Yeah. Be intentional, be deliberate. People are willing to help. It's really hard to ask for help, though. I get it. I understand that. Yeah, I remember my father, when I got my first job at building things on the internet. He's like, the internet, huh? Isn't that thing on 24 hours a day? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, that means you're on 24 hours a day. And I was like, no, he doesn't know what he's, old man. Doesn't know what he's talking about. Yep. He's right. That stuff is on 24 hours a day. And people have expectations, don't they, Tanya?
They do.
They certainly do.
They do.
People want their electricity all the time.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
So for the people here that are working in or about to enter their workforce, one of the skill sets that I see that is can be challenging is managing up, managing a boss, or managing those folks, right, and making sure you're in alignment with those people that seem to have some sort of direction over where you go, either in the organization or not. Frederick, I wanted to ask you, in terms of growing your career inside of an organization, how important is understanding the skill of being able to manage your boss versus being able to manage, because we always talk about team management and team leadership and all those sorts of things, which are more lateral or the other direction. What's your thoughts?
Oof, that's a great question, and it's a very important one as well, because this is a human situation. Even though we're talking about technology, it is about the people you're around. And as we started out talking about networking, which is all about communication. And so managing up is probably the most difficult thing you ever run into, right? Because it's a couple of things, right? You're managing a boss or a person who's responsible for you, right? Already that's a negative, right? Because you're like, oh man, you know, I got to meet someone else's expectation versus my own, right? And so, and they're probably pushing you to do something that they feel that you should be doing that makes you better, that you don't feel like you should be doing, right? And so, but understanding your boss, understanding where they came from, understanding the work they put in to be where they are is extremely important. And it's important because one day you're going to want to be your boss, or that day you're going to want to be your boss, right? Because you want to move up in the company that you are in, and to move up in the company that you are in means that you move into your boss's either his role or her role, or you move in a different diagonal role that's, you know, comparable, right? So I think managing up in companies, once you get into companies and understanding who's who inside organizations is extremely important. And there's this thing that you guys should look up, and most of you probably already know about it, but it's called implicit bias. You guys familiar with implicit bias? That means that, you know, the person that you're working for has an idea of what the model person should be that's working in that role. And if you don't know that, right, you may not be meeting that role, you know, 100% because you don't know what your boss biases are. So those things are really important, and being humanistic about all of this and understanding not only the technology aspect of it, but the human part of it too, the emotional quotient, is going to be really important as you advance in your career.
Fun. And honestly, they become a mentor. For me, almost all my bosses have become mentors that help me grow, help me develop. So they've been really good relationships for me.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Zach, I mean, isn't it more, it's a mind shift set too, right? Because, you know, your boss is scary, can fire you, right? Give you raises or take them away. Basically, you know, just lord over you, right?
Right.
And that's all they're thinking about is you all day anyway. So, right? Yes. So how do we, I understand exactly what Tiny's saying, but I know some people, I've heard some people push back and say, well, you know, but they should be, you know, more accommodating to me and understanding my challenges and my issues. How do I find that balance?
You know, I think building that trust and rapport is probably pretty important. And in the context of, there's a lot of ways. I'm actually kind of transport myself back to, you know, some of those first couple of jobs I had, and how did that relationship get built? How did that trust get built? What are the things I did that created that trust? You know, I think it's, you know, I remember being pretty comfortable asking questions and therefore potentially looking stupid, right? My boss hired me. Hopefully they think I'm competent, but they asked me to do something, I don't know how to do it. Or I don't know what they mean. Or I don't know when it's supposed to be done by, all these sort of things. And I think like, well, you get asked to do this sort of thing, you're just gonna walk. It's like, well, I gotta figure this out. You know, to learn to kind of ask these clarifying questions. It's like, they're busy, they're way busier than me, they're way more stressed than me, so I gotta be respectful of their time. I can't just chew it all up, but I also want to be transparent. I don't want to just make assumptions, right? Clarify, ask some questions. You know, sometimes I'll ask a peer, you know, on the team to say, boss asked me to do this. Do you know what he means? Do you know what she means? You know, get a little help and clarity there. And then, you know, try to get some of that feedback right away. Okay, boom, done, I did it. Here's the result. Is this what you're hoping for? You know, so sometimes we kind of like don't want to initiate feedback, and I think it's important for us to initiate that feedback, be willing to, or, you know, kind of to ask the questions, be willing to kind of maybe look dumb, but get that clarity where you need to so we can be successful. Number two, you know, kind of confirm and give that feedback. You know, it's always best in the moment. It's really difficult, you know, 9 months at your annual review to say, well, you know, how did I do, right? It's like, well, gosh, you know, pretty far removed from anything in particular, right? Whereas, you know, in the moment, this is like, the thing you asked me to do yesterday is done today, boom, here it is. What do you think? Did I do it right? Did I do it wrong? Could I do it better? you get that feedback right away. All that builds trust. So then, gets to the last part of your question, it creates an opportunity for that accommodation, right? I trust this person, they're doing their best, they're working hard, they're learning, they're getting better, and yeah, there's an accommodation that's needed there, then that becomes much more likely. So if you keep it transactional and you don't take the time to build that relationship, that trust, you're kind of setting yourself up for confusion, chaos, and disappointment. But if you lean in hard and make those meaningful touch points, every single one of those touch points, especially early on, meaningful, you should really set yourself up for success.
Yeah, and it can be tricky, right, Tanya? Because I remember walking by conference rooms and going, they're talking about me, which they're not. But again, we all have some insecurities when it comes to our performance at work, right? And so how have you found ways to get feedback that's actionable or actually something that's been helpful for you?
Yeah. My goal is to make myself the easiest person to give feedback to. And the way I do that, I'll just share how I do it, is I will walk in to my boss and say, hey, and this might be quarterly or on a time basis, and say, here's the things that I think I'm doing good at, with maybe some examples of why I thought it was good, and here's some things that I'm struggling with that I think are things I need to work on. I think it's really important to be able to articulate ourselves what we're not good at. Right? And be the first one to stand up and say, you know what, this is not my thing. I'm struggling with this. Because number one, it creates transparency with people, but then it opens the door for them to comment. If you walk in and you say, can you just give me feedback on how I'm doing? It's really hard. It's like a blank slate. But if you come in and you say, okay, here's what I think I've been doing pretty good in the last quarter, and here's where I think, and then your boss can, oh yeah, that's right, you did do that. Oh, you're right, I saw you there. It gives them that framework to give you ideas, and they may affirm everything you've said. They might add a couple of things, or they might say, no, I don't see this in that way, but it gives them a framework. It's always better to start with something than nothing. And I'm going to tag on to Zach's comment too. I think I'm a pre-planner. It works great for me to kind of come in with a few things, but I also think real time is great. So I, as a boss myself, I try really hard after a meeting, I'm working with someone, to call them right away. Hey, this was great. This part of the meeting was great. Or, well, I think there was an opportunity to have done something better. Or I might call my boss right after a meeting. How'd you think I do? Here's what I think. And I usually will share my opinion first. I think this didn't go as well as I thought. I would have done this different. So I open up that door to conversation versus just cold calling them. I try to warm it up with them.
I love that. Frederick, in terms of that, being intentional with feedback, what would your...
Well, I'm a little bit different person than, I'm probably, I'm an engineer by education, right? I'm always right?
That's true.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna always have that emotion, right? So it's the conversation we're having right now is extremely difficult at any level, right? And you talked about clients, and we have some very difficult clients who think that we should drop what we're doing and be at their doorstep or call them back right away, or and bosses are the same way. And I can't ever, you gotta have that balance of the relationship with your boss, right? And you can't, it's very difficult to treat them as though they're king or queen, right? Especially in 2023, right? Because we're in a whole different era in how people communicate and what they know about different things. So I think that relationship piece from an individual standpoint, be really careful with it, right? From you as a standpoint, because those relationships are so different, and I can't even express it. So because there's no template, right, that you could use for individuals, because everybody's different, right? And so that's why I say it's very, very, very important to get to know that person, and not put them in a category of boss or, overseer or any of that stuff, but as a human being, because it becomes a human relationship, right? And then when you talked about how do you overcome, the negativity part of the relationship, that you feel like your boss should be giving you more, right? and they're not. So all that stuff's real sensitive information that you have to process, and you have to process it in a way that you may need help. And what I mean by that is, don't always rely on yourself in the mirror, right, to get that information back to you, right? Because what could happen is that you could be dead wrong in the way that you're dealing with your boss, right? And you're relying on your own feedback on that, and you do need that outside, and that's where that networking comes into place, and having people in your court comes into play, because they'll give you that valuable feedback, right, when you're approaching things the wrong way. But I would always get, and I've always been open to talking to people about what I've been dealing with, right, because I've been dealing with a lot. I've been a black man in the technology world since 1975. You know what I mean? Like it hasn't, in the beginning years, it wasn't that fun, right? But I had to have that cast of people around me to deal with people who I was dealing with, right? And I couldn't deal with it on my own. So don't be afraid to open it up to, others around you, whether it be peers or, others that may be, to ask questions about what you're dealing with, right? Positive or negative, but make sure you open that up for yourself, because the topic we're talking about right now is extremely sensitive, right? And it's extremely hard for us too, because we go into situations with these expectations, and then when our expectations aren't met, right, we want to fight, or we want to be angry about it, and again, we could be dead wrong in the way that we're approaching stuff, right? So just I would pay very close attention to that one. That's a good one, Kurt.
Great, thank you for
Yeah.
that. I really love that insight. Okay, we're going to do Q&A now, right? We're going to jump into that. So, what are we doing, Joel? Is that you running it?
If you hold it as a prop, that's great. So
Yeah, sure. So thank you for the session. It's been really eye-opening and very insightful. I wanted to ask about the communication with management and the communication with coworkers, and how it's better directed, because I feel like sometimes we want to provide feedback, or we're requesting feedback, and it's written versus verbal. From the standpoint of a vice president, I'm assuming written communication might be better, but from the standpoint of an individual contributor, I think verbal communication, understanding where the person comes from, looking at their face, looking at their, the way they talk, it gives you a lot of context as to how the feedback is being provided. So I just wanted to hear some insight kind of from both perspectives and see what you guys thought. Thank you.
Context of trust and confidence, you're having conversations about issues. But there's a time where things become escalated or difficult or challenging, or just are complicated. Things become that maybe need to kind of have more of a log of things. That's just a reality at times where sometimes complex issues that need multiple perspectives, that we just need to kind of keep track of things.
Yeah.
Because the things can become hearsay in a hurry. It's like, well, let's get things written down so we're clear on maybe what we agreed upon, what we talked about, who talked about when. You almost kind of build a little bit of a log of kind of what's going on, and this could be whether it be technical incidents, something blew up and everyone's stressed about it. You need to kind of have a log of what happened, or it could be a personnel issue where there's employees on the team that are fighting about a situation, and you kind of need to kind of take people's statements and get things kind of written down so you can kind of sort through it and get some help with it. That's sometimes why you go to the more of the written method, but that's not my go-to. I don't want to be in a situation where I got to be writing things down all that often, because that means I probably have a lot of issues. But it is part of it. So I would encourage, as much as possible, even if you're remote and virtual, to be kind of moving to more of a conversational thing. If it's going to be more of a high stakes conversation where you want that body language, if you're just doing it over Slack or chat or Teams or whatever like that, that can be not as good as just kind of getting just talking and being in each other's presence.
Yeah,
So.
I think it's important too that you're clear on what's going to be impactful to you, that you're intentional about asking for that. I think that's how we can create a safer place for ourselves in those conversations, is just by being intentional to say, this is what I need in order to be successful, and just asking for it. And if you have a boss that's not
capacity to manage your own emotions and your behavior in the face of your feelings and understand the emotions of others around you. And if it's a big switch, and I help a lot of folks make that transition or kind of work on polishing some of the edges around that transition a lot. Learning the language so that you've got a way of talking about emotions and understanding your own, as well as being able to communicate with people about their own emotions and what they're experiencing, and helping them develop that vocabulary, because the folks in technology are not selected for EQ. You may have it, you may not, but you're not selected for it. And so as a leader in that technology space, it makes you doubly important that you work to build those skills. You're not born with them, nobody is, but they are learnable skills just as the technical skills are.
Absolutely.
That you picked up.
Yep.
And everybody's going to hate you.
Just get used to that.
That could happen.
Yeah, can I add one thought to that? Can I add one thought? I was just want to add one just quick thought to that question, just because I went through that transition, and part of what when you're technical, you kind of want to progress towards being like the top of your game, like super. I'm going to be like the architect. I'm going to be the senior. I'm going to be the expert, the principal, whatever it is, whatever career path kind of go on. I got a certain degree into that path, and I started to look around. I saw some really wicked smart people around me. It's just like they were like totally next level, and I was like, I don't know that I'm going to be there, but I really can kind of coordinate and kind of facilitate way better than the rest of these folks can, right? So it became a little bit of a self-awareness sort of a thing to me. So I made that pivot, but there's nothing wrong with staying on the technical track either. But it's like, and if you don't know now, that's fine. Yeah. This is something I had about 7-8 years in my career. So.
What advice do you have for people as they're trying to find when's the right time to change positions or maybe even change companies? And what factors did you consider as you made those changes to different positions?
Oh, that's a great question.
Frederick, why don't you start on the
That's another one that I think as humans we struggle with quite a bit, right? Because we don't know when enough is enough, right? And I think, in this world today, and my suggestion based on my career, I wish I had made decisions quicker to move from companies to another company earlier, because I put myself through, some emotional turmoil, by trying to be loyal, right? And so I would say to you, you are the most important person, right? And what you're dealing with is the most important thing, right? It's not your boss, it's not the company, it's not any of that stuff, right? And if you're struggling with the company and you can't work it out by the relationship with your boss or whatever it may be, it's really time to move on, because you're going to be stalling yourself from going to the next level. Yep. So I would say, make that move.
Well, Tanya, you were at Target for 20 years. I mean, leaving that, how do you do that?
Yeah, again, I have a little different experience than everyone here. So I was at Target 23 years. At Target, for any of you that works there, at least when I was there, you weren't, I would say if you were at a job more than 18 months, you were kind of considered stale. And so they moved you quickly all the time. So I had many, many, many different opportunities to do lots of different things. In fact, I was probably moved faster than I was comfortable, but it was awesome experience. I left Target because I was laid off, and I came to Excel, and I've been here for 7 years. I've had 3 different positions since I've been here. I would say similar to Frederick. First of all, you have to be happy with what you want. And quite honestly, you just have to make the right choice for you. And if you're not happy, you should move. If you're happy and you love it, you should stay. You know, and really you should just do what makes you feel joy. I mean, that's kind of one of my things is don't stick out something that you dislike, right? Because we all are people and we want to enjoy our life. So it's that simple in my mind.
Okay, Brad, jump in.
I just had one last quick thing. We've talked about a lot of skill development in terms of networking and managing up and these kinds of things. And I'm going to throw one more at you, and that is to learn how to manage compensation. There's a lot of books on it. I have my own personal favorite that is, it's short and easy to read, and it's very effective. It's called How to Make $1,000 a Minute, and it's all about managing compensation. And we all know that there's a gap.
Company, you will always have access to them. You rode here with them. You can talk with them. But find 3 people you don't know, connect with them, learn their name, be able to do that. 2 is connect with at least 2 of them on LinkedIn. It's a discipline. Like I know it's just work afterwards to be able to find them on LinkedIn, to be able to connect. I already made a post about today and I was realizing that there were 2 panelists that I'm not connected with on LinkedIn. I just have to follow up. I posted about it, now I gotta make those final connections to just be able to close the deal. When I do searches later, I don't see 2nd degree connections as fast as I see 1st degree connections. So it's worth it to make that extra step. Send 1 sentence, hey, great to see you at Tech Careers 1.0 and be done with it and just send the message and be done. So 3, talk to 3 people you don't know. 2, connect with at least 2 people on LinkedIn. And 1 is find one thing that you heard today that you can do right away. Maybe it's the book about compensation. Maybe like that just clicked with you and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna read the book, but I'm gonna read the audio book. Or I'm not gonna read the book, but I'm gonna find it on Goodreads and I'm gonna see an outline and I'm just gonna like, whatever it is, do it. It's easy to just like kind of take in data and then not do something about it. So my encouragement is find one thing that you heard today, ask a clarifying question, make sure you got it straight, and then act on it. So thank you again to our panel, to our moderator, and thank you. We are going to send a survey out tomorrow. We want to make sure these events are valuable to you. Maybe panels were great today, but you'd love to do speed networking. Maybe a panel was great today, but you would love to be able to work on a specific skill and be able to actually like do it in the moment. We want to hear that. There's a lot of wet concrete for Tech Careers 1.0. Some of the steering committee members are here today. We're trying to see what's going to be the most valuable to you, so definitely offer that feedback. A couple of other events that are coming up soon. Jumpstart. Several people raised their hand. They said, I'm looking for my career in technology right now. I'm not working currently and I want to. That event is for you. Please make sure that you register for that event. We want to make sure that you're in the room to be able to connect with employers who are looking to be able to hire. Join Jumpstart. Tech Talks, this is again a first time ever doing events. This is like TED Talks, technologists getting up and telling compelling stories, this time about talent, about why they hire who they hire, about programs that they run within their companies to be able to hire new technologists, about the state of technology talent in Minnesota. So that's a great free opportunity for you to be able to connect and hear like tech talks about those kind of things. And then Tech on Tap is coming up on April 6th. Again, if you're looking for working your networking muscles because they're a little bit sore today and you need to get back out there and be able to use them, join us for Tech on Tap. It's a great way to be able to do that. Thank you one more time to our sponsors today, to Thomson Reuters, to Excel for being able to help make this event happen, to Caitlin, to Bonnie, for everybody from Excel for being able to host us, and to Ishmael. Ishmael runs this community back here. So Ishmael pulls together all the details, runs the committee, does all those things. If you have feedback for him today or for me today, definitely let us know. But Ishmael gets all the credit for what happened today. He really, since November, pulled together the panel to be able to start doing things, has really gotten the ball rolling and made that happen. Ishmael, did I forget anything? Is there anything else we need to tell people?
Team MnTech gets the credit.
Okay, sure.
That's all you forgot.